Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on the Weekend Show brought to you by Holocron Popcorn. My name is Andy Madaki. Talking about the world as it is right now, everybody says the world is now a digital or a global village. But it's amazing how much we can do with our mobile devices, amazing how much we can do virtually, and how almost everything which we do is now tied to technology. But while this is happening, how are we securing ourselves from harm? How are we securing ourselves from the people who are constantly trying to compromise the system? Because at every point in time where you have new technology, you also have a set of people who are trying to compromise it, hack it, and make it to be used in ways where it wasn't necessarily created for. So we're talking about cybersecurity and how to stay safe on your devices, virtually, physically, remote, online, at work, and everywhere. And I'll be speaking to Haniel Jafaru of HTC Academy. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Good morning, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
I saw you earlier in the week at the Cybersecure conference, and it's amazing what you guys are doing, and even the fact that cyber awareness is now a big conversation. I know the Cybersecurity Experts Association has been in existence for 10 years.
Yes.
However, every day we still have people being scammed, being hacked, and all whatnot. So how important is cybersecurity awareness in this day and age?
Well, cybersecurity is largely as important as IT generally, because IT tends to be the feed that interconnects every other feed together. So when we're talking about like the star, the middle part of that star that's the IT. So securing it, because it interconnects every other sector, securing it is as important as what it is, the sector that interconnects it. So we need to largely begin to look at, from this part of the world, we're doing the best that we can. Even as an association, we're also doing that. But a whole lot needs to go into it. A whole lot needs to go into it. Starting with the fact that those in the remote areas really don't even understand the concept of cyber. Talking about the security aspect of it. So we need to begin to look at how we can localize some of this awareness. We need to begin to look at how we can expand the reach. Well, the good thing is next month is the month dedicated for cybersecurity awareness by UN. So it's the October generally every year is the cybersecurity awareness month. So for a good 31 days, would be doing a whole lot of awareness, going to schools, going to institutions, private organizations, public institutions, to let them know that, okay, we are here again, and this is the tactics this time. Because the tactics used last week is maybe completely different from what's going to happen this week. So it's evolving. The system changes, the tactics changes, so it means that there is need for consistent and continuous learning and development. So those that are using the digital devices also needs to be aware of some of these tactics so that they can stay prepared and can defend themselves when the time comes.
You spoke about the people in the rural area who are not even as exposed to some of these threats and the threat actors in this space. Let's talk about something which concerns a lot of Nigerians. We use WhatsApp a lot.
Yeah.
Most people now use WhatsApp more than they use the internet itself, and it's becoming an ecosystem on its own, which becomes now a news channel, which becomes a community, it becomes also a marketplace. But in recent times, we've seen a lot of WhatsApp hacks where someone's WhatsApp gets owned or gets compromised, and you see people now sending requests for money. What's going on, and how can people protect themselves from this?
All right, so for WhatsApp had designed a system called two-factor authentication. And what that system does is to ensure that you, being the owner of that WhatsApp account, the WhatsApp account is linked to your phone number. So a code is largely sent to that phone number via SMS. It's expected that you don't give anyone that code. So what these threat actors do is that they manipulate you, which is a concept called social engineering. Social engineering is the act of manipulating someone to do what they are not, what they originally would not want to do or don't intend doing. So they manipulate you by engaging the act of social engineering, which now makes you to the target, they manipulate the target, which now makes the target to release that pin. And once the target releases that pin, what happens is that they take control of the person's WhatsApp account, because that WhatsApp account is linked to a phone number. So it is for WhatsApp, which is generally owned by Meta, they are assuming that, okay, you own the SIM. The phone the OTP was sent to a SIM card, which is connected to a phone number. So it's expected that you keep that SIM safe, and you should be in possession of that SIM. So if anyone is entering a PIN that is sent to that SIM, it's generally assumed that it is you. So what we need to do is to ensure that we don't give anybody that OTP. But in case whereby, because those in the village really don't have an understanding about this, especially the fact that the social engineering tactics is evolving and it keeps changing, and it keeps it's quite dynamic, because social engineering is one of the most difficult threats to contain. And the reason is because you are hacking the human mind. The human mind is under attack. In fact, generally it is called the human hack. You are hacking because now there are certain persons you know that you give a level of trust to, because that's what social engineering does. It exploits the trust that you release to certain persons. So some persons come to your house and you don't give them access to the house itself. While there are some persons you have a level of trust with them that you can even give them access to your sitting room. But there are persons that, yeah, they've not earned that level of trust where you will give them access to even your kitchen. But there are certain persons that, whether you're at home or you're not at home, they can't even access your bedroom. And the reason is because each of these persons have their own level of trust that you have given to them. So the more trust you release to certain persons, the more exposed you are. So social engineering try to exploit that human nature of trust that is inherent in us to release trust to certain persons. So because of that, nobody is exempted from falling victim to social engineering attack. Not even the cybersecurity professionals, because we're talking about the human mind. It invariably means that it means that you won't be able to trust anyone. And if you have that nature in you to always trust, you always fall victim. And no attack, the research shows that about 95% attacks that happen globally succeeded because a social engineering technique was embedded into the attack. So it's not as though that you can completely exempt yourself. However, there are things you need to do. You need to continue to stay abreast of the recent tactics, the recent techniques, because when the awareness comes out, people get to know about the fact that this is a tactic they are using. So now don't share your OTP with anyone. And that's what we keep preaching. Even this has been existing for quite a time. But how they make you share the OTP is now the tactics. So they can come and say, okay, I've sent you, there's a meeting I need you to join, and I've sent you the PIN. Please send me the PIN. So that is the tactics. The tactics changes, but the goal remains the same thing. The goal is to get the OTP. But how they get the OTP may change. The person calling you today would change a tactics, and the tactics will be completely different from another person who will be calling you tomorrow. So what then needs to be done? We should prevent sharing the OTP. But if peradventure you mistakenly shares the OTP, what you can do is because usually they use a system. These threat actors use a system. They use a system to carry out that attack. Mm-hmm. So if it was a phone, it's easier to just, if you uninstall your WhatsApp and reinstall it back and reset as if you're setting it afresh, you would knock them off from them having access to your account. Yeah. However, because you're using a system, you will knock them off from having access to your contact, but your groups the group you
still have
belong to,
access
they will
to
still have
it.
access to it till after a couple of times, probably 7 days, because it's 7 days that it takes for you to even do a proper reset of your account.
Which does largely speak to the fact that WhatsApp needs to up their game when it comes to security, because there's only so much you can expect of individuals and people. I'm a cybersecurity professional, but I've gotten a call about, oh, I'm calling you from this group. We have a meeting by 7 p.m. And for me, it was funny because I was one of the people who formed the group. And so a meeting wasn't going to hold in that group without me knowing about it. And so it's just very easy for people to fall for it. And I like the fact that you're also preferring solutions. A good part of the conversation also is the fact that when people think about hacking, you just think there's this brilliant kid somewhere just tapping and doing magic. But I like that you spoke about social engineering, because a good 75% of breaches and hacks is as a result of human error. It's the human being.
Yeah.
And the hardest part is hacking the mind, which will now translate to that. Let's move to social media. You have a lot of cases on social media where people's accounts are also being hacked. You have people being impersonated, so there's identity theft. You have romance scams, and now you have sextortion.
True.
How can people stay safe online? Because with artificial intelligence now, for instance, someone can create a nice image and picture of an African woman, a Caucasian woman, or whatever it is, get multiple pictures, start an account, and be chatting with you like it's a normal person. They can even use modify the voices to sound like that of the opposite gender, get you comfortable, send you pictures that are relatively not safe to watch, and then at some point ask you to send some, then they start blackmailing you. How can people spot these threats and these criminals, and how can you protect yourself, basically?
Okay, there is the usually when it comes to romance scam, that's the tactics that gave birth to the Yahoo concept. So it has expanded from being just romance scam to other, from like the BEC, business email compromise, which is more of like the advance of it. So to start with, I've had conversation with persons who generally because of their nature being introverts, they are more of like introvert. They are not extrovert in nature. They don't have this. They find it difficult to express themselves physically. They think social media is one way they can express themselves. So those category of persons, usually, if you check at the statistics, those category of persons are those that usually fall victim to this form of romance scam. And the reason is because probably in the school where they are rejected, dejected, separated, isolated. And because of all that, they just find out that somebody is getting interested in them. Their state makes them vulnerable to always want to release, always want to share, and not knowing that whatsoever person that they may be speaking at the other end may not even be real. So that nature is, those who are that nature have the tendency of falling victim, and they should be on the lookout. And like I said, one that engages the internet should always think twice, think before you click. You need to understand that you don't just open up to anybody you meet online. You have to find a way to validate. You have to find a way to verify before you can announce, okay, because that's the process. By the time you identify, you verify, then you validate that which has been verified. So if you don't pass through this 3-step process of identifying, verifying, and validating, it's largely going to, you are largely speaking to somebody you don't know. So there are systems you need to put in place for verification. If somebody says his name is this and that, okay, how do I verify this name? How do I verify this name? Let a person get you. Yeah, with AI now, a whole lot of things can be created, and the person can mimic what he actually is portraying to be. But just look for a way to verify whatsoever information the person is sharing with you. There would always be a loophole. There would always be a loophole. If you're smart enough and intelligent enough to put all the information in front of you, you would always find a loophole. However, would you allow your emotion to override the loopholes you're seeing? Because that's where the human nature comes to play, especially those who are introverts, who have found 90% of persons ignore them, and now it's getting like one person trying to get in touch with them. They are always prone to always want to ignore all those lapses and loopholes and want to find a way of getting to share. But once you've been able to identify, verify, but beyond verifying, you have to validate that which has been verified, because the attacker may put in system in place that would checkmate your verification. But validation, they may not be able to do that. Validation would mean having to get the person to be in a place where you would need to validate all that has been verified. If the person, I'm of the male gender, okay, now I need to verify this. How do I verify this? We need to meet in a public place where I need to validate all this, where I need to ensure that the picture I see online is the same with the person I'm seeing physically. So I don't know what AI tool can help change the identity of you physically, but I don't think that exists as it stands, except when we get to the robotic era where we begin to see that. But you need to validate whatsoever information that has been verified. And for organizations, that also cuts across, because when once somebody calls and said, okay, we are from the support company of this, we want to try to support you, we heard that you have a downtime, verify that information. After that, validate that information before you can now do whatsoever access or grant whatsoever access that needs to be granted.
Thank you very much. Before I let you go, final question. The Nigerian government has had its own strides and achievement when it comes to cybersecurity, and one of which is that we now have the Nigerian Data Protection Act, which took years to come into place. We now have the Data Protection Regulation Commission, which is also commendable. We have a Cybercrime Prevention and Prohibition Act, which I find very questionable and it needs a lot of work to be done on it. So we've got that. But what role do you think government should play as we wrap this up?
Okay, so there are a whole lot of roles I think government should play in all of this, and largely some of these recommendations I'll be mentioning here were in one of my book that was recently released. So the Geneva Convention on Cybercrime made mention to give some recommendations. One of those recommendations is the fact that we should have a criminal court that is largely focused on cyber cases, because we know fully well that the terminology changes, new things comes forth. There are over 20 different emerging technology coming up, and there is need for us to begin to look at that perspective. AI, the threats to AI. AI is a huge concern. Yeah, it's coming with fantastic things, but a huge concern, because no one's talking about, there are global discussions about AI, but there are a whole lot of discussions that has not been discussed as long as the regulations are concerned. So we need to look at how to checkmate that. The Data Protection Commission is doing its best, but it needs to expand. It needs to be expanded to capture AI, because the data protection largely was designed and developed as at the time where AI had not become this.
What it is right now.
Yeah, but now we need to expand our data protection to capture AI, complement what AI is doing. We need to have our own AI regulations. The US have their own, not as a country, they are implementing their AI system or AI regulations at a sectorial basis, allowing sectors to design their own specific regulations that aligns with their sector. EU, from the other end, they are doing an umbrella system whereby they are allowing AI they are regulating AI from an umbrella approach and designing regulations that covers the whole of EU. But in Africa, nothing is being done. Over 600 publications and frameworks and policies have been published as it aligns with AI and data protection, specifically AI, and less than 10% comes from Africa. So we need to start doing that. We need to start carrying out that discussions because AI is in threefold. There is the model, there is the data, and there is the algorithm. The algorithm needs to be transparent, the data needs to be secured, and the model needs to also be secured. These are a lot of things that I think what the government needs to do in order for us to be in the forefront of this battle of cyber.
Haniel H. Jafaru, cybersecurity expert and executive director of HTC Academy. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts around cybersecurity. October is the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and so we will be having more conversations around that, and we'll see how we can take it from there. That's too much we can take on the lifestyle segment. We'll take a quick break. When we return, more on The Weekend Show.